Hey there everyone, this is Tom from MonTac here. Now we're going to be doing a different kind of video today. This is going to be top 5 mistakes made by players new and old. These are basically the major points I've noticed throughout the competition, and a lot of top guys in the top 5, top 10, all over the board make these 5 mistakes. So let's get into the first one. Number 1, incredibly important, no defense for Gemini. What that is, it's basically referring to a card called Sunwalker Impervious Gemini. It's a synergy for Sunwalkers. And it's probably the worst card in the game to get hit with. It's specialty activating on you because it can make you discard at least 5 cards sometimes, and at most, potentially even 13. It is the worst card to be hit with. And it works on any monster that has power higher than it. So it is always important that if you're going to play a synergy that is higher than 2050 power, you got to make sure you go Torosian Guard. Got to make sure you have a specialty flush, something you can use. Synergy Nullification is a great counter. Just be very mindful of it. It is incredibly dangerous and must be shut down as soon as it hits the board. Obviously, also check out its condition. Those are the cards that make it up. Seriously, worst card to get hit with. Let's get to the next one. Lack of focus on health points. Now, we have a bunch of really tough players, but a lot of them find it very troubling to get to that 15 health. They focus a lot on the offense early on and don't worry about securing their health points. It's incredibly important. You've got to hit 15 health. Max health is what I mean. You've got to hit 15 health. I'd say at the very latest 5 minutes before extra time. And that's like really cutting it close, but a lot of players will leave it to the very last second. If your play doesn't work and they shut it down, you lose. That's how a lot of people have lost their titles and a lot of people have gained theirs. So it's incredibly important to keep that in mind. Always using cards that will just adding a bunch of health cards can just make it a lot more secure, lets you relax, lets you play a bit more flowy, and really just get into the game state and really start focusing on what your opponent's playing. It just makes it a lot less stressful for you when the time's ticking down constantly. Now this next one, my goodness, does it happen a lot. Falling in love with the flashy cards. To name a couple, Blaze Minotaur, Azrael's Chosen Angel, Beowulf, Torosian Predator even potentially at some stage, Impervious Gemini, another great one. What is it? Well, falling in love is basically when you constantly use the same card and keep on using that ability and rely heavily. This happens a lot with potentially even a lot of people who are really just starting out or outside that top 10 scene. They use cards that have done incredibly well, but they start relying on them heavily, and once they hit top 8, it all just falls to pieces. So major cards, like I said, Impervious and Beowulf are really big problems because, well, Beowulf was previously known as a very strong card because it could get to many attacks, but it's got so many counters in the current meta that you're not going to see it actively used in the top 8. And as for Impervious, it's a fantastic card, but a lot of guys in the top 5 are a bit more aware of what it does. That's why I'm even pointing it out here in the first tip. Is it's an incredibly strong card and everyone knows it. So you just got to make sure that you don't rely on that being the one that you're trying to finish your opponent with. A lot of people don't even run 2 copies of it anymore, so that can be a real problem. I've seen people use Blaze Minotaur, which can pop cards, which is fantastic. Great for Sunwalkers, but it's a health point loss each time, and people get carried away. They keep doing it, and it's like, oh, it's only 1 health point, but that all stacks up, and some stage you're 3 health points down, you've used all your health gainers, and you got 30 seconds left in the match. Yeah, you're in a really bad spot, and it can really stuff up opponents. I've seen a lot of people that have great ability just fall in love with their favorite card, and it just goes horribly. Next thing, we've got too many deck changes. Now, I'm usually quite for people making, exploring different archetypes and doing a lot of this, but you got to make sure you practice a lot when you do it. Sometimes a deck change is not the best idea. Sometimes, like a great example of this would be Squishy. His Sunwalkers, he has barely deviated at all from them from the very start, barely changed anything, and he's currently champion. That's because he learnt his cards better than anybody possible. He became an absolute specialist. But if he changed decks in his next title match, I guarantee you he loses. Yeah, I said it, Squishy. But yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. You got to be very careful when you're making these deck changes. Make sure you've done enough research and figured out how that's the right way to be played. And you make sure you're confident before you go into these really crucial matchups. But yeah, no, that's a big one. Final one. Now this one I see a lot at the top. And sometimes a little bit towards the mid tier, but we're really focusing on like the top 5 area, focusing on losses. A lot of people, obviously there'll be a lot of close matches and really tough losses can start to get to you, but it's really about managing and seeing where those losses really mean something. So obviously we've got one of the best cases is Misfire, fantastic player, really great mastermind of the game. And he just enjoys every moment. Even if he loses, it doesn't matter. He learns. He does a couple, he explores it. He doesn't take it as a terrible loss. I mean, he was one of the more dominant champions and he suffered a tough loss to Squishy, but he didn't take it as a detriment. He just kept going on, kept moving through, and he even changed decks and made sure he knew exactly how to do it. And now he's right there in second rank, right back where he, right there in the title picture, and he's going to be a major threat in the September tournament. So it's always just, yes, you've lost the match, but identify what happened. But you don't have to do major changes. Like if you feel like your deck was good enough, it's just how you play it. It really depends on how that match went. You could completely neutralize your opponent, and they come back with something like an Apex at the last moment and take you out, and then you let that define you as, well, I did all right, but that one person got me. Right? And that's what I hear a lot of. I hear it a lot. Like, players will bring up one loss they had months ago and talk about, well, I'm good, but what about that time I lost to this person? It's like, months ago. Why you could lose last week and bring up that, and it's like, so what? As long as you keep improving, why does it matter? It's really about what you change, if you change anything at all. It doesn't have to always be a card in your deck. It always can be your approach to that card. It can always be how you play it, when you play it. There's a lot of different things that come into it, so it's really the mentality you go into each match. A loss is just a loss. It's just a negative on a record. That's all it is. To put it in perspective, there are guys. Charging Badger had 9 wins and 7 losses. When he became champion, he had what? I think he had 11 wins and 7 losses. He had like 11 wins and 7 losses, and he was champion. That's a lot of losses, but he still got through the hardest and toughest players at that time in the game. I mean, that tells you all, doesn't it? So, and now he's also getting right back up there. So, it's it's so menial. It's more about how you deal with it. And I think just take it as experience, really. But anyway, yeah, those are the 5 tips, major things to be aware of. Obviously, no defense for Gemini. Make sure you're checking those Gemini plays. Make sure you're not playing anything that's going to get Gemini. If you are, make sure you have a counter in case you do have to deal with it. Lack of focus on health points. Make sure to keep those in mind when you're playing. Health points are incredibly important, and a lot of top 5 guys forget. Falling in love with the flashy cards. Don't overload those flashy cards. That is a lot, and it's going to cost you heavily in the late game, especially if it gets shut down incredibly quickly. Too many deck changes, like I said. Too many deck changes. Don't keep doing tons of stuff. If you are going to do it nice and thoroughly. Make sure you research as much as you can. What are the cards and the best way to play them? Ask players who use that deck, what their general strategy is, and what the best way to use a certain card is. And you can generally get a good way from there. And then don't focus on your losses. Every loss is experience. If you lose to someone strong, then just take that as a compliment that you were able to even remotely challenge that person at all. Move on, take that experience with you next time, and then beat them. Thank you guys for listening. This was a bit of an impromptu video I just thought it might be useful. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Bye.